Hello, my name is Priya Singh, and I'm a senior at Queen's Gateway Health Sciences Secondary School. And today I'll be talking to you about stress POC teens and parasocial interactions. Parasocial interaction began with the creation and rise of mass media, such as radio shows or television. As these forms of media began to spread, so did personas. Personas refer to the kind of personality an audience engages with. Personas can either be fictional characters or real-life personalities. An example of a popular persona is a talk show host, such as Jimmy Fallon. These personas are all around us, as when you open any social media app or watch any sort of show, you're being subject to a persona. Around 97% of teens use the internet, meaning the majority of these teens are also being subject to these personalities. Teens also face increased stress as they age, due to gaining more responsibilities like having to balance AP classes and extracurriculars. Research has shown a direct correlation between internet usage and stress, meaning that they are exposed to these personas on a higher level. This presents the potential of teens engaging in parasocial interactions more when they're stressed as a form of coping. Through that background, I created my guiding question. To what extent are POC teens aged 14 to 18 who experience stress more inclined to engage in parasocial interactions? From there, my hypothesis was formed. POC teenagers who are stressed will be likely to engage in parasocial interactions. A strong positive correlation exists between the two. In order to understand this field of research, we have to look at past research. The term parasocial interaction was first coined by Horton and Wall in 1956 with their study evaluating the illusion of relationship that television and radio performers present. However, they failed to make a distinction between parasocial interaction and parasocial relationships, which caused field-wide confusion. These multiple definitions have led to the creation of several scales because people are constantly trying to redefine what parasocial interaction and parasocial relationships mean. For the purpose of this research, parasocial interaction will be defined as a phenomenon that occurs while interacting with personas, where interaction seems reciprocal, even though it is a known illusion, as provided by Dibble in 2016. According to Broom and Wagner's neural maps, it has been found that people who experience loneliness or are socially isolated misclassify real people as fake, but fictional people as real. This means that the distinction between the two is unclear, and that lonelier people may see these characters as real people, which can also extend to fictional personas. Stress can cause someone to undergo social isolation, and if seen as real people, these characters may have the ability to provide the same benefits as friends, like social support. Stress lowers cognitive function, which is particularly harmful to students who need to process information quickly, solve problems effectively, and actively recall whatever they learn. However, conversational interaction has been found to mitigate stress, meaning during times of stress, social interaction provides the ability to help cope. Additionally, other research has found that friend-to-friend interaction and nonverbal behavior increase perceived emotional support. If under the illusion of parasocial interactions, people will believe they're engaging to friend interaction, and some personas are also able to non-verbally interact with people, such as through eye contact, meaning that people may feel as if they're being supported. Additionally, Tracy Gleason found that these relationships can be emotionally fulfilling for adolescents as a friend. As a friend for young girls and role models for young boys. Even though this refers to parasocial relationships, parasocial interactions would be how how parasocial relationships form and how they become emotionally fulfilled. Additionally, in another study she was a part of, 94% of the ninth grade participants said that they engaged in some form of parasocial interaction, showing it may be somewhat common within adolescents. None of this research, however, evaluates parasocial interaction in relation to stress, and demographically, none of them focus on POC teenagers, which my research does. My research is important because it expands the information regarding parasocial interaction as a coping mechanism for stress within teenagers, which is necessary due to the negative effects stress can have on cognitive ability, and creates a foundation for future research. A mixed method survey was utilized because it provided a well-rounded view of parasocial interaction in relation to stress within teens. Quantitative data was measured through scales and analyzed through correlational analysis using linear regression and Pearson's correlation coefficient. Correlational analysis was best suited as it simply determined if the two variables had any relationship, which needs to be looked at before trying to observe causation. Qualitative data was gathered through two open-ended questions at the end of my survey and used inductive thematic analysis in order to categorize the responses into themes based on language because of the fact that there's not enough previous research in order to form a strict code to categorize these responses. The parasocial interaction scale was created by Rubin in 1987 to measure soap opera character connection, but became the most widely used scale within the field. It was shortened from 20 items to 10 and measures viewing motives, attitudes, audience activity, and involvement. For the purposes of this research, the scale has been edited to measure parasocial interaction inclination. While the scale is controversial due to its rocky theoretical foundations, it was the most feasible due to length and most credible due to its frequent usage. The perceived stress scale is also a 10-item scale that measures responses using a Likert scale. It asks about perceived stress students had during a specific time period, with questions being negatively or positively coded. The scale was chosen because it is regarded as a standardized measure of stress. Linear regression was used to determine if perceived stress scores could predict parasocial interaction scores, which it does through its slope. A positive slope means that they increase together, while a negative slope means parasocial interaction decreases with perceived stress. The Pearson's correlation coefficient was utilized because a kuratosis test proved that the data was normally distributed. The correlation coefficient shows the strength and direction of this linear relationship. A t-test was used to find the p-value, which indicates statistical significance, and was utilized because it considers a difference in any direction. The first question of the open-ended questions assessed whether participants believe that they could interact with personas reciprocally. This question intended to gauge whether or not participants were aware of the phenomenon of parasocial interaction while it took place. The second question asked if high-stress environments impacted participants' social needs as a way to analyze if parasocial interaction was needed as a coping mechanism. Thematic analysis found common themes, which is important to seeing teens' general perceptions of stress and parasocial interaction. It was distributed within Queens High School, and Queens high schools and online on Instagram, Reddit, and Discord in order to try and gather a diverse sample. Overall, there was 166 participants. Google Forms, Google Sheets, and Google Docs were used to store data and analyze data. The linear regression shows a positive slope with a low R-squared value, meaning the line of best fit is very loose and the scores are not very indicative of one another. The range of Pearson's correlation coefficient R values is measured from +1, which is a strong positive correlation, and -1, which is a strong negative correlation, and a value of 0 shows no correlation. Therefore, an R value of 0.2 indicates a weak positive correlation. A p-value close to 0.05 shows statistical significance, and such a value of 0.4 shows a lack of statistical significance, meaning the data may have occurred by chance alone. Demographically, there was a majority makeup of Asians and 17-year-olds, showing an uneven sample. Within the thematic analysis, most respondents did not believe they engaged with parasocial interaction reciprocally, but they did believe their social needs increased with stress. Those who engaged with PSI reciprocally acknowledged relatability as an aspect, as well as the consumer-supplier dynamic. Those who saw an increase in social needs usually remarked about wanting social support or comfort, as well as feeling isolation. Contrary to the previously presented hypothesis, there is a weak correlation between these two variables, and the relationship has not been proven to be statistically significant, meaning that the correlation might be due to chance. There may be other significant factors regarding coping with stress, such as personality type, that make the correlation weaker. And overall, PSI does not play a significant role in PSS and vice versa. Respondents were not generally aware of PSI, but were aware of increased social needs while stressed, showing the need for social coping. The higher value consumers believe content to be, the stronger parasocial interaction occurs, especially within content considered relatable, which many participants emphasized within my research. A lack of awareness of parasocial interaction may suggest constant exposure to mass media has dampened the phenomenon, making it harder to occur in some individuals. In response to question 2, participants remarked about a need for social support during times of stress, supporting the idea that social interaction may diminish stress, especially that of friends, which has been proven by previous research as well. In conclusion, students who are stressed may be more inclined to engage in parasocial interactions. Parasocial interactions might be able to help cope with stress due to the weak positive non-statistically significant correlation. The research done, however, remains significant in the expansion of knowledge within this field, although it may be attributed to chance. Current research is similarly advancing how parasocial interactions can be utilized to help students, such as through online courses, as it has been shown that parasocial interaction can help students academically. Therefore, this research builds upon the previous knowledge of how parasocial interaction can affect students, as stress hinders academic success, that limiting meaning that limiting stress for students is highly beneficial. My limitations for this research were my age and race majority, with a majority of Asians and 17-year-olds in my respondents, and the fact that it was a survey means that the data was self-reported, meaning that it is more vulnerable to bias. And both the PSI 10 scale was adapted because it initially did not measure inclination, meaning it had to be edited and was therefore experimental. Future research should aim to do a longitudinal study, potentially revealing a more nuanced relationship with parasocial interaction and stress. An experimental approach would fix the issue of self-reported data and accounts for increased complexity, especially in terms of awareness and teens' perspectives. Different scales can also be utilized because the PSI 10 scale was edited, but future research can try to apply one of the other scales, like the audience persona interaction scale. And future research should also aim to have a more diverse sample in order to gain more perspectives. That was all. Thank you so much. Have a good day.